Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about the financial planning of an individual. Financial planning is actually of some point of thing which is of interest of everyone, and everybody would like to see how to play with the money, right? So I am Dr. Surbhi Goyal from Shri Vishwakarma Skill University, and today I am going to discuss about the financial planning of an individual. Now the first question arises, what is a financial plan? Is it something related to my income? Is it something related to my savings? Is it something related to the protection of the money? Or is it something related to what I'm going to spend? When we talk about financial planning, then we actually cater to all these points. So, financial planning, if I read it for you, it is the process of taking a comprehensive look at your financial institution, situation, and building a specific plan of it. So, the first thing that is important in financial plan is to understand where you stand. We need to see where are we going to invest. We need to see how much returns am I getting, and most importantly, we need to see at the goal for which that financial plan is being created. It includes everything. It includes stocks, it includes shares, it includes real estate, it includes our financial goal. So now the question arises, what actually are we planning for? Okay, that what could be the reason of planning? We can plan for our n number of decisions. We can plan for the education. We can plan for the family. Even for buying a certain immovable property, we can plan for that. We can plan for retirement. We can plan for our health conditions. We can plan for the investment strategy, for family meetings even, for tax planning and for insurance as well. There is also something called estate planning that also become the part of our financial planning. But think about certain things like, are we going to actually bifurcate in that particular list? No. Theoretically, the financial planning is been divided into 6 parts. The first one is related to investment. Investment of the money which I am having spare in my hand. Okay, so like when we are earning, we are having our salary in our hand, but do we invest the whole money? No, we have certain expenses. So we need to deduct that expenses out of it. Out of the residual amount, we do have certain amount which we have to keep for certain contingency. Maybe God forbid there is some small viral fever that you have to cater. So you need to park certain money for those contingencies. So after parking that money for those contingencies, we are left with certain amount which is known as our investment amount. So we invest our amount, and specifically this particular term is related to person to person. Okay, if I want to park in whole amount in a particular investment offer, I can. That's my personal preference. If I don't want to park in some amount, I may not. So that's my personal preference. So those preferences will help me in designing the investment plan for myself. Now, the second part of financial planning is protection planning. Okay, I want to protect myself. In general terms, we ask people, where do you invest? So they say ki I invest in insurance. But my dear, when we invest, we certainly look for certain returns. We certainly look for certain type of gains at the end. So that is not an investment, that is a protection. Okay, so we invest money or we spend our money, we plan our money to get certain protection. Protection against some disease, protection against, maybe there is a life protection, there can be protection for the business, the profession, the house that we are residing in. So those type of protections are being planned in this particular section. The third section is the current financial position. Okay, so currently, let's say if I take an example of Mr. A, wherein he has some money in his hand, let's say he is earning 50,000 rupees per month, and that he wants to spend in certain way. Okay, he has a huge family of 8 members, and that money is required to be divided into certain sections to take care of the family. So he has to plan his the financial position accordingly. How much he can spend in excursion, how much he can spend in the education of the children, how much he can spend in the taking care of the parents, how much he can spare, he should spare the money for some future thing. So all those things are being planned in planning the current financial position. Third thing that they have to plan is the estate. Estate or will, you might have heard about. So what I'm going to have in my later years of life, what will be included in my whole earning? Will it be only money? Will it be only the ornaments? Will it include certain landscape? Will it include certain more assets which could be a profitable part? So all those things need to be the part of my estate planning. And of course, while designing the will, who is going to get what? How much portion I'm going to give it to my spouse, to my dependents. So that all planning has to be done in that estate planning term. Then after that we have tax planning. Okay, now it's not after, it is actually the ongoing part which comes against the each part of planning. So tax planning is something which is related to what government is going to get from me. So being a salaried person having 50,000 money in 50,000 rupees in hand doesn't mean I'm going to get 50,000, right? I need to pay tax on it. So just to save myself from tax, what I can do, I can park my money to some other venture. I can park my money to maybe some stock market. I can park my money to paying some EMIs for the house or something else. I can park my money to certain donations, right? So how am I going to plan my tax? How am I going to park my money in that way that becomes the part of the growth of economy and I am not paying it as a tax? So that thing we need to pay, and of course we need to pay the tax in time so that no other penalty is being imposed on us, right? Then we do have the retirement planning, which is the most important and we ignore the most. As if I go by the general Indian ideology, we plan for our early dreams, we plan for our education, we plan for our dependents, we plan for the marriages of our children, but we forget about ourselves post retirement. So this is something which is very important for any individual. When they start planning, they should start planning for their retirement from the very first day of their earnings. So this is something which has to be gone through. But the question arises, how do we plan? Is there some mechanism to follow? Yes, we do have a financial planning process. The first part, the very first part of this financial process is to set the financial goal. My goals should be clear, whether it be short-term goal, whether it be long-term goal. So what could be my short-term goal? So short-term goal cannot be to be happy. That's a very subjective. We need to create such goals that can be measurable. Okay, so we need to be very specific in our financial goals. So we need to write it down that what are my financial goals. Short term can be up to 1 year, and if I'm going beyond 1 year, then a particular goal list with the particular of how long are you going to take that particular goal, how much time are you going to take, what should be the amount of it. So that thing needs to be listed. The second thing that follows is the identifying of alternate course. See, when we are predicting the future, everything not doesn't fall as per our plan. So we need it to be ready with the different course of action. That okay, if some at the present moment this is my plan, but in the time being maybe there is some deviation, there is a change of situation. So how am I going to cater that situation? So those course of action need to be read. Okay, there can be a possibility that wherever I am going to plan to invest, that situation is already been changed. Okay, so we had seen various scams also, so that thing can be there. So keeping those things in the mind, we need to align the course of action. Also, in certain way, course of action also means that how am I going to park that money? Am I going to invest in one go? Or I just want to fix certain months that okay, in this month this payment will go, in that month this payment will go. So those course of actions need to be cleared beforehand. Then we need to evaluate the various alternatives. Looking at the course of actions, we need to design various alternatives, and accordingly we will see how much money is being parked where, what will be the implications of it, how much charges are going to be there, how much taxes I am going to pay. So all those things kept in mind, and we'll see whether am I going to meet my financial goal or not. Okay, then we create the financial action of it, that how the things are going to fall in place. So timeline based actions needs to be created, and then a review on daily basis or maybe monthly basis or yearly basis. All these things need to go in a very systematic manner. Now you will ask a question that is it not very time consuming? I don't have time for this. But believe me, to prepare a plan, it will take some time. But it is very important to manage your money for the sustainability of yours and for your family. When we look at the other people who are growing the money, when they are multiplying the money, we always wonder why we don't do that. They spend the time on their financial planning, you and I. So that makes a difference. Now let's take all these parts one by one. So the first step says that we need to set our financial goals, but before that, we need to understand where we are standing. So salary is one part. Okay, we are getting the money from salary. We need to understand from what are the other modes that we are getting the money from. When we are getting salary, we are also getting interest from bank. So that is also adding to my income. So I need to jot it down. If I have multiple houses in my name and I'm also receiving rent, then also that becomes the part of it. So I need to jot it down. If I'm just getting some gifts from my parents or maybe from my wife or my spouse or some other relative, that also becomes the part of my financial plan. And believe me, when you are creating the financial plan, you need to be justifiable and truthful to yourself. So you need to just list down from where am I going to get the money. Then you need to identify the certain time zones for which you are going to for which you need money. You need money for yourself. Okay, there can be a dream of having a house. Everybody has. So you need to see how much time I'm going to get the money, and you also need to identify the amount you are going to invest in a house. 1 BHK, 2 BHK, 3 BHK, a bungalow, a penthouse. What are you going to purchase? So you need to identify the time horizon. If you are married, then you need to see that what is going to be my spending in a certain time period. You need to plan for the education of the children. You need to plan for the medical expenses of the parents. You need to plan for the marriages of the children and then for the retirement. So all those things are required to be placed as per the time horizons. Then you also need to see the willingness to take risk, as we know that when we invest somewhere, the risk is also coming with the return, right? So we need to see our risk appetite. We need to see how much risk am I in position to take. So accordingly, you will invest. You will see where I can park my money. If I'm not a risk taking person, I'll see, okay, fine, I'm investing my money to get some certain type of interest. Only that's it. But if I'm a risk taking person, I may opt for going for investment in stocks, in certain types of derivatives where I'm getting good returns, or maybe there's a high risk, so I'm okay with that. So we need to identify that. Then ask ourselves, is it the right plan? Ask various questions to yourself, like, am I doing getting the good returns? What is the market return related to it? Is it my actual goal, or what will be the risk beyond it? What will happen if I'm changing my job? What will happen? And being a female, maybe there are certain responsibilities on you, and you say, I need to take a break. Being a female, male also, you need to take a break. How am I going to manage my expenses at that time period? So, many other questions are there which you need to ask yourself before deciding whether am I going to pay or whether am I going to invest or not. Also, there are certain decision making questions which you need to ask yourself, like what are the factors which forced me to have this financial thinking? I need to give quite a good weightage to each and every factor. So, identify those factors which will help you in taking your decisions, which will help you in knowing what is your requirement. Then you have to certainly identify between short term and the long term goals. For short term, you need to be very quick because this situation is going to change frequently, right? For long term, you can settle the things in a later way, but not very late. Okay, so you need to identify what is urgent and what is for later. Then you need to see the retirement needs. As I mentioned earlier, this is one sector which we don't consider as important even today. So we need to look at our retirement needs. At the time of retirement, what should be my corpus? So you need to plan your jobs accordingly as well. Okay, then you have to see what will be the major economic factor which is going to impact your decision. Okay, there are certain industries which are having very high attrition rate. There are certain industries which work on projects. So if such industries are there which are acting on the projects or which are helping in taking your decisions in a larger way, then you have to see that what are the factors, those external factors which are going to impact my decisions. Like there can be jobs which are related to seasons. There can be jobs which are related to maybe a particular situation in the market. So those need to be identified, need to be taken care of while taking the decisions. Then you have to look at the present and the projected incomes of all the assets. Okay, so what happens then when we go for the financial planning? We buy insurance, and that insurance agent will give you a docket of certain 15-20 pages, and they say ki these are the terms and conditions. Do we read that? The answer is no. Then what to do? In that circumstances, you need to see ki whether am I getting that protection at the end or not. Okay, this is the present situation. The things are being promised by a person, the insurance agent to you. You need to project. And in this situation, your time value of money concept is going to help you. We had studied that earlier. Now it's time to apply it for yourself. So we can get the projection accordingly. Then we will also see ki what is we are investing and what we are saving. Okay. It is never been advisable to park your complete money. You also need to be happy. You also need to be taking care of your breaks for the family, for maintaining your work life balance. So, what should be the savings for that and what amount you are investing? That is very important. Second major question, how to set the financial goal. Now, setting the financial goal is actually a very strategic decision which one has to take. And while setting the goals, give yourself some time. It should not be that your parents are saying go and get married and I'm just planning for my marriage. Just look at your present situation. Are you actually in position to share that space, that comfort, that finances with someone? Are you actually in a position to give shape up your life like that you are going to take certain decisions for your spouse? All those things need to be taken care of before setting the goals. You also need to see what all different expenses going to come with the passage of time. See, life is not going to same every time. So you need to be compassionate, you need to be balanced before setting your financial goals. Also, there are certain steps which are to be followed to get your financial goals right. So, first thing first, you need to identify what matters a lot to you. There can be a person who is focusing on the family the most. So, what matters a lot to you can be your family. So, maybe your family is dependent on you now. So you need to see what are their requirements, and accordingly you need to park in the money in that particular thing. Maybe you can invest in mutual funds, and you are looking for the returns that okay, this is the requirement after 1 year, so let's have the money for 1 year for that particular time period. So accordingly you need to set your priorities. So set your priorities, and if you are certain defined goals, then list them. Okay. Second thing after that is what is in your reach. We can dream to go to the moon. We can go to the moon now, but if we are planning for that, then we have to see that actually we are getting that much amount or not, right? What your pocket affords. Everybody has their own way of spending. If I like to wear branded clothes, and of course I need to have that much money to afford it. If I like to have maybe my situation is like that I have to spend heavily on the food, or maybe I'm in a traveling mode, so I need to have more traveling expenses. That's my choice. Then I have to check my pocket how much I can afford and what is in my reach. Then I will have to see what is the time taken for that, how much time it will take to reach that particular goal. So that timelines also need to be very clear to me. So let's say if I am married and I need to plan for my kids, their education, then I know that after 12 they will be taking admissions at somewhere. Maybe they will get into some organizations, some institutions which is not having very high fees, but there is a possibility they will get some admission into an organization with a high fees. So I need to identify that thing, and I need to keep some money for that. Okay. So for that particular timeline, I need to park money accordingly. Then third thing, you need to see the long term strategy. I plan, for example, I plan to retire at 55. So am I having sufficient funds to take care of my age after that, my health after that? Right this point of time, the life expectancy is at this point of time, the life expectancy is 72 years. Okay, so if I'm retiring at 55, how many years are left? 17 years. So am I having the sufficient corpus, or am I having that investment strategy ready with me who is going to fund my 17 years? Okay, so that strategy, long term strategy, it needs to be very clear. The third step is very important. Set the goals. You need to set the goals smart. What is smart? Specific. You cannot say, I want to buy a house. You need to be specific. Where? What should be the whole area of it? What is the budget of yours of it? What is the location? When? Okay, so be very specific. What are you going to buy? What are the financial plans? Then it has to be measurable in terms of money. If it is not measurable, then it cannot be the part of your financial planning. I want to be happy. Well, happiness is a choice, but that is not counted in the terms of finance. So you need to be setting the goals which are measurable in terms of money. Then your goals need to be achievable. Achievable as per your current or maybe the future situation, but it has to be achievable. If your responsibilities are saying that you cannot afford to have a big world tour, then don't make it a goal. Okay, that can be your dream, but that cannot be a part of your financial planning. Then next is the relevant. It should be relevant of yours. Your financial goal cannot be made by your friend or your family member. It should be relevant to your situation. So those particular things can be very much relevant to you, and that has to be planned accordingly. And the last one is the timely. You need to mention the timelines of it. By when are you going to achieve? If you are able to meet it, then you are a good financial planner. But if you are not able to meet it, then you have to review where is the break, why you were not able to meet it. So after setting these SMART goals, the next thing is to create your realistic budget. Okay, so budget is something which, when we hear about budget, we say that okay, this is something which is made by the government yearly. My dear, you have to prepare it for yourself. You need to prepare your budget as per the dreams, as per the plan you had created for yourself. That budget will actually talk about how are you going to plan the realistic thing. So let's take an example. Let's say कि there is an individual who is of 40 years right now. ठीक है? So he has to really work on the financial plan. Although keeping the age bar, he is late. It is a thumb rule of financial planning. The early you plan, the better the plan will be. So when you are planning your starting your financial plan at the age of 40, the things are already out of your hands. So now let's say, okay, fine, he got this thing, that okay, now at the age of 40 I should prepare for it. So how to start? So for setting the financial goal, what he is going to see, he is going to see at his present position. So as a, if they are planning as a family, so he must be having a spouse, he must be having some children, he must be having his parents. So he is having two children, let's say, spouse and parents. So in totality, they are the 6 people who are in that family, and he is working, having a monthly income of, let's say, um, uh, 5 lakhs per month. Okay, so that's a monthly income. So what he has to plan? At the age of 40, his children must be going to the school, that we are assuming. Okay, so I'm not just talking about the present situation, how the people are planning to marry and having the kids. So that is the debatable things that we can talk later on. But when at the age of 40, he must be having a children, and he has to plan for at what time, how much money is required. So at the time of the admission of the school, then at the time of the exit to the school, then to the college, then to the postgrad. So these are the various timelines he can have. Then second is the spouse. Okay. So when the spouse is there, then obviously there are certain responsibilities towards the spouse. There has to be some money being parked for the spouse. That okay, this much amount that a lady will be requiring for taking care of the house. So those expenses required to be parked separately. Then there can be some grooming spending planned for her. So they can discuss mutually, and accordingly that money can be taken care of. Then there can be some contingency amount in the medical ones. So that money can be spent, but be very specific. Then of course, last but very important, the parents. Okay, so when a person is in 40, obviously the parents must be in 60s or 70s, right? So at that time, what all medical expenses can be there? There could be there is always a requirement of parking some amount which for which they are having the responsibility, and they want to spend it by themselves. Then there can be some excursion expenses for them. They can be going for some holy trips or maybe some excursion type of thing. So those things can be there. So a particular specific requirement for the coming year, okay, they want to go for these trips, these could be the expenses, these are the festivals that we are going to spend, and these are the regular medicines for which the spending could be like this. So such type of division can be there, time bound, measurable, specific, attainable. These things need to be taken care of. Only then the financial plan can be created. After creating those goals, we need to see ki what all budget is required to be spent. Okay? So now for this same person, we need to spend, divide the money. So for education, there can be some investment. Let's say they can park in the money with the help of SIPs, maybe mutual fund, or they can just go for certain ULIPs, unit linked investment plans, wherein they can park in money for a certain time period for a certain thing. So that money can be parked. Then for their medical expenses, so generally we can just take some example. Let's say ki we know ki these are the general medications, and on an average spending money some let's say 2,000 rupees or 5,000 rupees on a monthly basis on medicines only. Maybe for parents, maybe for family, maybe for the spouse or the children. So that could be a 10,000 whatever. So that money can be kept. Okay, in my budget, this is the monthly expense for medical. Then there are the fees, school fees, again that's a monthly expense, so that can be mentioned separately. Then there could be parking of money for some excursions, entertainment, work-life balance is important. So that money can be kept separately. Okay, that this much amount we are going to spend monthly or yearly. Then there can be charges related to grocery, very important for daily to daily thing. So that money can be kept separate. Okay, this is the part of my budget I'm going to spend. Then there can be money parked for transportation. We are going to offices, so all those money can be parked. So likewise, there can be a budget. After creating the budgets, the first couple of things which are the most important things that should be kept first, that should be top ranked in the list of priorities. So a list of priorities is very important. If going for a world tour is not a priority, then we can shift the money from that particular budget to the next one, to the earlier one, which is more important. If we are staying with parents, or if we even to the younger ones, there can be some situation, there can be some medical situation which is not foreseen. So we have to see from where that money is going to come. So we need to have a priority list from where one budget can be moved to the another one. Okay, and the last one, you need to monitor your progress. Maybe you forgot to spend on your excursion that much which you had promised. Now it's time to move your money from one place to another. Now the next thing is, we need to identify the financial needs as per the priority. So the financial needs of the individual can be different, moving from one person to another, even from one family member to another, that can be different. So it is very important for any individual to identify the financial needs of themselves. It is important for them and for the family as well. So all the financial needs can be divided into four parts. Those can be retirement needs, those can be asset allocation needs, those can be saving and wealth, and those can be protection. We go in the reverse manner. First we look for the protection. Like there are movies, I'm using Hindi, Roti Kapra Makan. So we think for the bread, we think for the shelter, we think for the clothings, right? So these are the basic needs. So likewise, there can be other protection needs depending on individual. So we have to think for those protection needs first and park our money accordingly. These protections can be related to the education, these protections can be related to the place you are sitting, these protections can be related to taxes which you always have to pay, the insurance amount you always have to pay, the estate planning or something like that. So really looking at your own protection, that amount needs to be parked. After securing all the protections and still you are having the spare amount with you, you need to look at the savings and wealth. How are you going to create the wealth? Where are you going to invest your spare money? What risk appetite you are having? All these questions need to be answered beforehand before we going for financial planning. So if you have some spare money and you want to avoid the taxes, you have to see where you can spend, right? So all those things needs to be planned accordingly. Then we allocate the assets. Allocate the assets in the way that where am I going to invest in the assets and the bonds and the real estate and gold? Where am I going to park? And what liquidity and timeline I am expecting from there. So if I am saying I am investing in equity, then I'll get the returns early. If I am getting into bonds, then yes, there is a timeline at which we are going to get the returns. If I am going to spend in let's say real estate, then of course the timeline is huge depending on the builder. And if I am going to invest in gold, I am going to restrict myself because gold is something which is appreciable. But yes, when you are going to resell it, the money is going to decrease. So am I going to take that much risk? And the last one is the retirement planning, which give you the financial independence and which actually creates the whole family agency, that how are we going to plan for the future. There are certain factors which impact our financial planning, which includes the technology, How are we going to use it? Of course, the COVID had made us learn so many things, wherein we can take our financial decisions and we can change them quickly. So, how are we going to plan it? That is something we have to take care of, how we are going to implement it. Lots of information is available online. We can take that information and plan accordingly. Second is the interest rate that is going to fluctuate from time to time. So, what interest rate I am looking for and what are the various barriers to it, that is something we are going to see. Then the economic growth of that particular country, that how much growth are we expecting, how much from our economy. If I am investing in some future or maybe abroad, then what economy am I looking at? So, what forces am I going to get? Then I will look at the confidence in myself. Okay, so if I am creating a plan and I am not confident about the plan, then of course there could be lot many questions which will come to your mind in future and which may hamper the whole planning. And the lastly, the availability of finance. We can plan for anything, but we have to check our pockets first. If are we actually in position to take that decision? See, no dream is big or less. No plan is good or bad. It is something how much realistic we are and how much we are going to spend on it. Next thing, how to project your income. So, for projection of income, you need to create your own cash flow statement. We have learnt about this statement earlier while we studied accountancy. So, now we have to think what is there in our pocket. So, we have to create our own cash flow statement. We have to take care. Now that we are tech savvy, so we can create the Excel sheets, but otherwise also we can write it down on a piece of paper with pen, which we can we can keep with us safely. What all the things that we are spending on, what are the different sources of income, what are we saving at, and here we need not to hide anything. We need to bifurcate the things accordingly. So, list down the things and divide the amount in that particular position. There could be some key values that we can spend on. We can have the key assets, we can have the key liabilities. So, like in a balance sheet, we do have certain assets which we are using and investing for some future usage. Likewise, we do also have certain liabilities. Assets can be your cash and bank balances you have. Then there can be some investment venues where you had invested. There can be certain pension funds for the retirement. There can be certain SIPs or certain investment plans from which we are getting the returns in future. Liabilities can be the loans which you had taken for certain meeting your financial needs, and there can be certain credit card payments. Yes, that is a part of liability that you have to take care of, certain overdrafts that you had taken, the loans, personal loans or something like that. So, all those realistic amounts need to be come on table before going for knowing how the financial plan can be. There are certain tips on it. Whenever you are preparing for certain assets and liabilities and your incomes and expenses, keep some amount for contingency. This will help you in your rainy days when you don't have money. When there's a certain situation when you need to park your money in emergency at some particular place. God forbid there is some medical emergency which you hadn't even thought of, that came and you need to park heavy amount, from where it is going to get. So, keep some contingency amount with you always. Don't park your whole amount and don't get into the debt trap. You know, there are certain economies which are into debt trap always because they believe on the plastic cards. They want to spend, okay, there is a credit card, there is a debit card. When you have such type of amounts, then when you have such type of habits, then at some point of time you need to return the amount as well. Do you have that? There are certain people, there are certain communities who even take loan to pay the credit card bills. Though, as an individual, as a rational individual, this should not be the situation. Your spending habits should be in limits of your income. Do not spend much. You need to plan for certain accidents which may happen. You need to plan for even for unemployment. In today's time where there are very less jobs which are of the long term nature, the way skills are changing, the way the businesses are changing, we need to actually plan for the unemployment part as well. Okay, if there's a situation like COVID happened, many people lost their job, many people were being given half of the salaries because there is no income. So in such type of situation, do we have the buffer amount? Can we manage certain months? We need to think for. So we need to manage our financial plan accordingly for those rainy days. Now, lastly, the question arises where to invest. So if I look at the Indian scenario, we have certain options available with us on which we can rely upon, we can invest depending on our financial situation. There can be an investment in the direct equity wherein we are getting the high returns with the high risk. That depends on my appetite. So while investing, while looking at the various options, we need to calculate the whole scenario on the basis of 4 parameters. The period of investment. Is there some lock-in period wherein I need to park the money? Like I give you an example of ULIPs. ULIPs is the unit linked investment plan wherein I am getting the insurance and I am parking the premium amount to the stock market for which I am going to get the returns after a certain year. It is always suggested if you are investing in ULIPs, you are investing for the long term. So if you are looking at the returns in the short term, it will always be negative. Okay, it has always been negative. So there are people who fight to the investment banker that I am not getting returns in ULIPs in the short term, in the first year, second year, third year. I am not getting. The person says that I told you it is for long term. You need to park in money. No, I want my money back. So when you are not literate about the financial instrument, don't invest. You need to take the knowledge, complete knowledge about what is the period, minimum period, lock-in period for that. Okay, if you are okay with the lock-in period, only then invest. Otherwise, go for the other options. Second, you need to see who can invest. Okay, so who can invest means what is the financial plan? What is the financial goal in your mind for which you are parking your money there? So if you are parking your money in your pension fund, then of course you are making the retirement planning. Only then you are parking your money. If you are looking for the short-term returns, you should park in the equity, right? So accordingly, as per your plan, that thing needs to be identified first, that what is the need for which you are investing. Then the risk, high risk, medium risk, low risk. You go to any financial planner, they will give you the whole chart that these instruments are related to the high risk profile, these for the medium and these for the short term. So accordingly, park in your money. If you are having a good risk appetite, you can go for the high risk. But if you are not very clear, go for the medium one. And if you are that person who is a risk averse person, go for the low risk investment only. And lastly, but very important, the returns. Expected returns as per the historical data available. So if anybody is suggesting you that invest your money here, ask for the returns you are getting from there. And you can easily get the data from internet. You just need to look at the returns I am getting on this particular thing, and you will get the right information. Believe me, when we are investing, you need to be very thoughtful. It's your money. Even when you are putting your money in a bank account, they say कि हमने तो बैंक में डाल रखा है. It's not your money. It's been reinvested somewhere for which bank is getting very high returns, and in return what they are giving to you, 3 to 4%. So keeping merely your amount in the bank account, saving account, is not at all an investment. This is not your financial planning. So looking at your present situation, if you want to get the higher returns, you need to plan the things accordingly and get the returns. And it is really important for everyone to start the financial planning as early as possible. So that's it for today. We all need to understand the things. So happy investing and get the good returns. Thank you so much.